Welcome to the Frugal Gardener's Garden, and today I'm going to give you 5 tips, 5 things that I do to get my garden ready for spring. I'm preparing this soil for my starter plants. I'm actually going to use this container here, this milk carton, and I'll show you what that's going to be used for later. That's going to be another one of my tips. But basically what I'm doing is getting the critters out of this soil because they can become a menace and create gnats and have all kinds of issues flying around in your house while everything is still closed up during the winter. This is a fairly easy tip. Basically, I just took these pans. They don't have to be this type of pan, but if you look close, you'll see I poked holes in the bottom. This one has holes. What you will do is put your soil into this particular pan here, and you put this pan on top of this one with the soil, and you cover it with aluminum foil. This is a 2-step process. Some people microwave it, some people bake it, some people boil them. I use a combination of the two. So what I do with this is I put the soil in a container that obviously is oven proof. I cover it, set the oven, well, you preheat the oven actually for around 160 degrees. So 160 degrees, it goes in covered for 30 minutes. That should kill any parasites, any bugs, anything that's going to emerge and start flying around in your house and giving you problems. It's important not to have a pan that's too deep. You want it maybe, 2 inches or so, because if it's too deep, then the heat's not going to penetrate it. That should be enough, but I don't stop there. My 2-step process includes then boiling the soil, which is the reason why I have here. If I leave this soil in this container here without the holes, obviously the water's going to run over. So the soil goes in here, this pan goes underneath, you pour boiling water over top of the soil, and obviously it's going to run into this bottom pan, and when you lift this out, it eliminates the water. So basically, again, it's fairly simple. If one method doesn't work, the second method will. Once you get your soil free of the unwanted house guests, you can use it in your starter cups and your starter pots and get ready for spring. So that's my first tip. On to tip number 2. I have one of the best mailmen in the country. But when January rolls around, I'm pretty sure he doesn't feel the same way about me. These are just a few of the catalogs that I've gotten this year, and they keep coming. I used to throw them away because it was way too early. But after last year, I decided to take a different approach. I'd always been getting my seeds early, but with the coronavirus and this new surge in gardening, by the time you wait until the spring, like many gardeners do, the selection is not as vast, and the seeds are going to cost you a lot more money. So here is tip number 2. Buy your seeds early. I buy seeds from a lot of different people, but I picked out these seeds because these seeds are very inexpensive. I am the Frugal Gardener, and if you're trying to save money, it's hard to beat for $1. Basically, these seeds come out the end of the year, or at the latest, the beginning of the year at Dollar General. These are just seeds that I brought this year. I bought them early January. I usually go right after the first of the year. I don't use all these, but they're so cheap, I give half of them away. My daughter gardens, my neighbor's garden, my nephew gardens, so I can afford to at 25 cents a pop. So that's my second tip. Buy the seeds, Keep them in a cool, dry place because you won't be using them until around April in most areas. I'm in 6B, so that's around the time that I start planting, late April, early May. But now I don't have to worry about shortages. So number 3 on the list of things that I do to get ready for spring is I use ashes. I collect ashes throughout the winter and I save them to use in my garden. Now before I go any further, I want to back up a bit. The last tip that I gave you actually was not totally free because seeds cost $0.25. It's not a big deal, but I did say free. So what I'll do is I'm going to add a 6th tip at the end, which means that the 5 tips will be free if you don't count the tip of buying your seeds in advance. So number 4 on the list of free things that I gather and use for my spring garden is composting materials. Now let me be very specific. I didn't say that you needed to compost. These are tea bags. These tea bags do not have staples, and basically a lot of times I collect these and I put them directly into the soil. The bags break down in a very short period of time. I just keep them in this container. I use them. Some of them are older, some of them are newer. A lot of times I'll cut off the little labels, but because they don't have a lot of dye and a lot of ink, sometimes I'll just mix them right into the soil about a month or so before the spring planting, and they break down, they work, they add nutrients to my soil, so I'm grateful for that. And this is an old standby, which is probably familiar to a lot of you guys, and that is coffee grounds. Now, I drink coffee every day, so I end up with a ton of this. It adds quite a bit of nutrients to the soil, and some people are concerned about the filters. I am not. Why? Because years ago, I stopped using the bleach filters and I used the all natural filters. Well, what I should say, to be very specific, is that I use the filters that it basically says that, well, it basically tells you that the filters are not bleached. It's the best way to put it. You'll see it when you get the label. I'm not pushing a particular brand. This is the brand that I use, but in most cases, the brown, unattractive filters are the ones that aren't bleached. I don't know why we have this obsession with everything that has to be bleached. Sugar has to be bleached. Flour has to be bleached. Everything is bleached these days. In a lot of cases, it is unnecessary. Tip number 5. Tip 5 is actually several tips. It is things you find around your kitchen that you would normally throw away. These are obviously eggshells. These are eggshells that I've pulverized in a coffee grinder. I use these in the garden. It provides calcium, but it also helps provide, well, it gives you protection for blossom end rot on tomatoes. So obviously using coffee grounds and the filters and the tea bags is not the end all. I mean, you're going to probably still need to add more depending upon what it is that you're growing. But you will get some phosphorus, nitrogen, potassium, magnesium, and copper. I mean, obviously some of these are in larger quantities than others, but this will add some nutrients to your soil. And again, what I do is I start saving this stuff early. We're about to come into March, so depending upon what it is that you're growing, I have more than one batch of soil that I use to amend. I usually use a bin, or a tote. People call them totes, and I'll add the soil to that. then I'll add these nutrients to that depending upon what it is that I'm growing. So that's this is the first half of the tip number, tip number 5 now. So basically, the other half of that tip is going to be eggshells. I have been using eggshells probably since I started gardening, and that's been over 40 years. Some people, there are various methods. People will sometimes just add water to the shells and they'll use the water from the eggshells. There are people who will rinse their eggshells. There are people who actually boil their eggshells because they're afraid of bacteria or certain contaminants. And there are people like myself who just basically crush them up. I leave them in this bowl until I'm ready. And obviously you're not going to put these in your garden the way they are. So this is my friendly little companion. This little baby here cost me about $8. And if I can get this thing to work. You just fuzz them up. There you have it. Dump it in a separate container. Repeat the process. There's your eggshells. No need to compost. No need to do anything except for just add them to your soil. So while I'm talking about other things that you can do for free, look around your house. There's plenty of things that you can repurpose, that you can use for your garden that won't cost you any money. These bottles here, I throw them away because we use a lot of water, but this time of year, what I basically do is I'll cut this off around here. Let's see if I can give you a better shot. And I'll punch a hole in here and basically fill this with soil, and you have a starter pot. One more thing that I never throw away are twist ties. These happen to be mostly from bread, but whenever I buy appliances, if I buy something from Amazon, pretty much everything you purchase these days that are electronics, they have these little ties. And I have a little container. I save these. Actually, some of these are from last year that I used and am saving and will reuse again this year. Sometimes when you get those little baggies or sandwich bags, and if you don't use those, you have a couple extra trash bags. Same way, I never throw these guys away. I always use these. So that is another way that you can save money. Lots of ways you can save money. You don't have to spend a lot of money to garden. So we are going to move on to, which is going to be our final free tip. As I told you earlier, there was supposed to be 5 free. I'm giving you 6 total. So in order to keep my word on the 5 free, the last one is the biggie, number 6. Number 6 is free mulch. This is the biggie. This is $300 to $400 worth of free mulch for your garden. It's from a company called Chip Drop. I'll post the link at the bottom. But I should tell you that even though many people love this, there are some people who are not so happy with it because there are a few caveats. Number 1, you cannot control how many chips you receive. It could be a large load, it could be a small load. This is the reason why I encourage you to go to their website and to watch their videos. Even though it's free, you don't get a lot of notice. Sometimes you just get a few hours notice, and you basically cannot cancel or distribute the load. In other words, you have to take what they give you. Now, there's a lot of things that I can do with this. I can use it in my raised garden. I can use it around my trees. I can use it for a bunch of different things. But here's the way that I get around having an issue with that. I have 4 neighbors that I know can use some of these wood chips. And I have 2 nephews that live close by that can use some, and my daughter who lives further away. So I already have a list of people. I could probably give an entire load away, which, I mean, it will defeat the purpose of me getting it. But my point is, you don't want to just have them drop all this off and then have to figure out what to do with what you don't need. So if you're preemptive, then it won't be a problem. So basically, you contact these people, and well, I go to the website, you fill out the form, and if when I think it's 4 or 5 weeks, they don't have anything for you, they contact you and you just sign up again, which is pretty quick. So as I said, go to the website. There are 2 videos they have. You can watch the videos on YouTube and decide if it's for you or not. I think it's a great idea. There are people who get this every year, and at this point, now the weather's starting to change, I am waiting for my load of free chips. So that's it. There's your 6. I said 5, but since one of them was involved money, it actually turns out to be 6. So this is what I am doing to get my garden ready for spring. I hope you guys find these tips useful. If you have not subscribed, please do. Tell your friends I'm trying to get my numbers up a bit here. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them at the bottom underneath this video here. This is The Frugal Gardener, and remember, when you grow your own food, you'll always know where it comes from. You guys have a good day.